first and foremost, for those of you that I did not have the pleasure of meeting last night, my name is Cecily Honeycutt. I'm going to tell you a little bit more about my role here at Baylor. But first, can we just take a moment and give all of our scholars a round of applause, because this is a big day for them. As someone who was privileged to sit on an interview committee, I just cannot express to you how mind-blowingly impressed I am with your children, and how grateful I am that we have them here at Baylor with us today. So thank you, students, and thank you, parents, as well. So as I said, and some of you whom I got to speak with last night already know, I have the privilege of serving in several capacities here at Baylor. First and foremost, I'm a Baylor parent. I have an 8th grade student. Her name is Elizabeth. She'll be in the upper school next year. I also teach in our upper school history department. I teach AP US History, Standard US History. I was also given the opportunity to design and teach the first ever women's history course offered at the school. That's been an incredibly rewarding experience. But today I'm here to talk to you in my capacity as the director of the Harris-Stanford Scholars Program. So all of our Carter Scholars and Carter Scholar finalists are part of what we call the Harris-Stanford Honors Program. It's named after 2 former Baylor faculty members, and it focuses centrally on leadership development, and we'll talk a little bit more about what that looks like. But question for all of the students in the room: can anyone tell me what the mission of the Baylor School is? Anybody? Go for it. Well, that's part of it, but the mission statement is a little bit broader than that. The mission of the Baylor School is to foster in its students both the desire and the ability to make a positive difference in the world. And the focus for Harris-Stanford is doing that through civic engagement. Okay? So our goal is teaching students the value of civic engagement by providing exceptional leadership opportunities through things such as extracurricular activities, seminars, lectures, and there are even travel opportunities associated for each grade level. Here we have a picture of some of our current scholars. We actually just took this picture within the last week. And this features scholars from 9th grade all the way through their senior year. We've got 2 cohorts within the program as it's currently designed. We have a 9th and 10th grade cohort, which your children would be part of. And we focus on civic engagement in very specific domains. So the first is leadership and community, and we start right here with their community at Baylor. We believe in starting at home. So we also focus on government and justice, arts and culture, business and economic development, philanthropy, and healthcare. You'll see here in the picture to the left, this is actually, we took our freshmen and newly inducted sophomores downtown within the last couple of weeks. They got to visit 2 local courthouses, meet local judges, our local district attorney, head of the public defender's office. We also were fortunate to be able to schedule time with Chattanooga's Mayor Tim Kelly, and what you see here is a picture of the Q&A session that he hosted for us. So, and we've got several panel members who you'll be able to ask questions of later that can speak to what that's like from the student experience. Now, from the junior and senior perspective, this is slightly different. We partner with an organization called the Institute for the Public Trust, and it's based in Raleigh, North Carolina. And we host a series of guest lecturers from the Institute here on campus, and then at the end of February, we actually take our junior members and we travel to Raleigh, and they spend a 2-day immersive experience on NC State's campus, Duke's campus, and UNC Chapel Hill's campus. And they are fortunate enough to get to meet with some of the leading professors and academics regarding their subject material. It's phenomenal. Now, this group that you'll meet today will be headed there, or some of them will be headed to Raleigh at the end of the month. But I'm happy to answer any questions that you may have about that. And this is Frank Hill, pictured with our juniors. He's the director for the Institute for the Public Trust. We are the only high school in the entire country to secure a partnership with the Institute for Public Trust. Now, that says several things. Number one, how strong our students are and how strong their capacity for leadership and making that positive difference in the world actually is. Now, the aim of the Institute is to inspire and educate the country's best and brightest to eventually go on and run for public office. And if our students do that, that's great and that's wonderful. And we will be cheering them on for their entire political career. But what the school's goal, Baylor's mission with this partnership, is we aim to inspire and educate civic leaders, and we want that leadership process to start first and foremost on this campus and focusing on making that positive difference here so that by the time we send them off into the world, they can do it on a broader scale. Here's some pictures of our scholars in action. We have had to date 11 different lecture series hosted on campus between the two cohorts. And then like I said, we will travel to Raleigh later this month, and there will be several other programming initiatives that take place both on and off campus for both of the cohorts. Our students get to hear from leading experts in all of those domains that I talked about on that earlier slide. This picture here, our 9th and 10th grade students got to meet with a leading cybersecurity professional. He's one of the top in the entire country. And he got to talk about the importance of data, responsible online citizenship, things that actually matter to students that they can then go out and use later on. Here in the middle, our freshmen and sophomores did an intensive experience on campus talking about what leadership actually is. How do you define it? What does that look like? What can you do to contribute to leadership as a process? And then finally, you see a picture from our most recent field trip that we took downtown. District Attorney Cody Womp is there, Public Defender Steve Smith, Judge McVeigh, all of those individuals who were gracious enough to meet with our students are featured there. So if you ever have any questions about the Harris Stanford Honors Program or the programming that we are working on developing, my email is here at choneycutt@baylorschool.org. You are free to reach out anytime you feel compelled to do so. Students, that invitation extends to you as well. Ask questions. We love that. Curiosity is a wonderful, wonderful thing, okay? Now, for the part you've all been waiting for, you get to ask those deep dive questions about the program. So I'm going to ask our panel to go ahead and come forward. We're going to have them introduce themselves. They're going to give you their name, their graduation year, and also where they're from. And then I've got sort of a kickoff question so that you all can start thinking about those deep ones. Students, you can ask questions too, not just your parents, okay? We'll start here.
Hi, I'm Smith Gibby from Raleigh, North Carolina, and I'm a freshman.
Hi there, I'm Anthony. I graduated in 2018. I'm originally from Winston-Salem, North Carolina, but I'm living up in Nashville right now.
My name is Colton Griffin. I live in Los Angeles. I was a boarding student here, graduated in 2007. And I'm from just about an hour north of here.
Hi, I'm Julissa Gerard. I am a sophomore from Atlanta, Georgia, and I'm class of 2026.
Hi, my name is Claire Vaughn. I am also class of 2007 from Birmingham, Alabama originally, and back in Birmingham. And fun fact, Colton and I were actually part of the very first class of Scholars when it started back in 2003.
Hey y'all, my name is Juliet Sykes. I'm from Dallas, Texas, and I'm a junior.
Hi, I'm Sam Tavoe. I'm from Johnson City, Tennessee, and class of 2026.
So my first question for the panel would be, what has been or was the most valuable experience you had or have had so far during your time as a Carter Scholar and Harris Stanford Scholar? Go ahead. You can pass the mic to Juliet. I love it.
So my name is Juliet again, and I think my most valuable experience so far as a Carter Scholar was the Harris Stanford trip my sophomore year, so last year, to the courthouse downtown, and we also got to meet the mayor. And so I have never really been interested in going into politics or anything like that. So going into this trip, I was a little just like, oh, like I'm required to go on this trip, like it's probably going to be really boring. But it was really cool to see how all of these people, like especially Baylor alums, are working in like the city government and beyond that, and how I can get involved in my community here in Chattanooga. And it was also really cool to talk with Mayor Kelly and talk about how he got involved into such a leadership position in our community.
Sam?
I would say our trip to the art museum my freshman year, because I mean I draw, right, but like I never really thought like, oh, this helps people, right? But we went there and like learned about, oh, just by like art existing in a city, it can help a lot of people. There's also a like super cool mural like downtown on the AT&T building. I definitely recommend you guys go check it out. But yeah, just seeing like, oh, it's not just a hobby, like this can actually be helpful.
Hi, I'm Julissa again. I agree with Juliet, that the courthouse was also very great for me because I want to be a lawyer. So when we were able to sit in an actual courtroom and hear lawyers talk about different just things that they were trying to help their client win was really big for me because, again, I want to be a lawyer when I grow up. So this program being able to expose me to that at such a young age really helped me better understand where my future is going and understand where my career could end up.
See, the program's changed a lot since I was here. So, but to speak to, I think, the culture here, which hasn't changed, is when I was in school, I was pretty involved in the community service program here. And I actually started our first environmental community service program at the high school, which was incredible to think as like a 15-year-old, your staff and faculty would empower you and support you in, carving out a program where every day after school, I led a group of, 15 or so peers to do things like work in a nature center or, clean people's yards that were immobile and, that needed like help, or do recycling on campus or build trails. I know the programming has gotten a lot better and formalized, but I think the culture, has always been here, and it was pretty awesome experience doing that when I was here.
I'll build off of that. The Harris Stanford program did not exist when Colton and I were scholars. I think there was a lot of sort of learning and living through the process as they were coming in. So what I think is remarkable, and what I would say particularly to you all in thinking about coming in, is that I do think there is a sense of curiosity and growth that the school maintains. And so the fact that this program continues to exist 21 years later, but has only gotten better and better, what I would say is there's not only the things that you're going to hear today that are already offered, but what I imagine is that over the course of the 4 years that you would be at Baylor, those opportunities would continue to expand and increase. So I would echo Colton. I think the spirit of when we were here and what we were able to do was remarkable. And for a lot of us coming in through the scholarship program in and of itself was the gift, because it wouldn't have been possible without that. And I think it was reaching a different group of students when they started the program. And so just would speak to the positive nature of having a program that's always evolving and always asking itself, how can I get better? Because as a student, then you end up as the recipient of that. So maintaining that flexibility and reflection about how to continue to support students.
So any questions from the audience so far? Go ahead, please.
For the current students, how often do the scholars get together and meet, or what's involved?
About every other month or so.
Two to three times a semester for the freshman and sophomore cohort. We're very conscious about, making sure that we are not pulling them from their academic classes, balancing which classes we do pull them from. We're very intentional about looking at that schedule. And then junior and senior year, you can expect that number to increase. This past semester, we had 4 on-campus events, and then we'll look at about 2 on-campus events plus the Raleigh trip for second semester. So we gradually build that in and take into consideration, cognitive load balances and scheduling balances, all of those things. It's very, very intentional and graduated in that respect. Please.
I'm Emmanuel, and I was wondering for the alums, how did Baylor help prep you for your various fields of work?
Question.
Great question. I went into independent school and never came out. So I currently serve actually as the head of school at Advent Episcopal School back in Birmingham. So we are a junior pre-kindergarten through 8th grade school, and it's actually where I attended before I came to Baylor. So for me, I think there were tremendous opportunities for leadership here. But most importantly, there was an opportunity to engage with people who were very different than I was. So whether or not that was geographically they came from a different place, or the strengths that they brought to the table were really different. But I think there was a real value in the sense of independent school community. And dorm parents and the residential life part was a huge part. So right after college, I actually went and worked at an all-girls day and boarding school and lived on the dorm as a dorm parent, and did recruitment. And so I think, and actually that's one of the things I think is really interesting, is there are a number of Baylor alums who actually continue to come back into independent schools. It's part of why you see such a huge number of alumni that work here. It's not because they couldn't get jobs, it's because who would want to be here? And so I would say, I think that there is an experience here that stretches you beyond the capacity that you think you can reach, and at the same time is reflective of the real world. And so it prepares you kind of in any career field. And so in my case, it was most directly related because it was another independent school. But I don't think I'd be in the position of a head of school and the ability to kind of maintain that connection with a variety of constituents if that wasn't something that had really taken root when I was here.
Okay, so that's a great question, and I think I graduated in 2018, so I just finished up college in 2020. I've only been in the working world now for a year and a half, but I think throughout the college experience, the Baylor experience kind of gave me the confidence and the independence to go in and serve in leadership positions within the organizations I was a part of in college. I think that really helped, and then I think another key piece that I took away from Baylor was kind of being agile. I was in college during COVID, so there was a major transition throughout my college experience, and there were a lot of challenges kind of navigating being a college student during COVID. So I think having had the Baylor academic experience, I was able to approach those transitions throughout COVID with more confidence than I otherwise would have.
And I would say, like, it's really interesting looking back at the things that you learn in high school and how you're putting them to work, like, in your career. So I run a software company, I'm the CEO, and I'm like, oh, you didn't get leadership training when you were in high school? That wasn't normal? Of course, like, we knew that's not normal. It's like an incredible privilege to be part of something and have that instilled in you. And, the soft skills for sure. I grew up in the middle of nowhere, but I had a roommate from South Korea, I had a roommate from Germany. You were just like surrounded by just a different environment of caliber of people, which, broadened your perspectives, which was amazing. And it's just an incredible part of your life. So every day something comes back here.
Yes, please.
Once you graduated from high school and you went to college, did you ever realize family was comparing you to something that you didn't even realize your mom was already?
Did you hear the question? Once you graduated high school and went on to college, did you ever have a moment where you saw that Baylor was preparing you for something that you didn't necessarily realize it was?
I can take this one since I was just in school. I think one of the main things that I always think about is my relationship with my professors in college, and I think how I approached interacting with professors kind of was shaped and founded at Baylor, and being a part of a community where you are close with your teachers every single day kind of helped teach me that that's how really you should strive to interact with your teachers and your professors once I got into college. So, I mean, I think at Baylor, we have the Learning Center here where you can go and receive extra help and get a better understanding of it. And I know all of you all are great students, so you may not sometimes think you need the extra help, but it always is super helpful, and having those extra resources here is helpful. And then kind of transitioning that into college, you kind of take that away, and you may be a solid student in your college class, but being able to go into the professor and talk to them, ask them extra questions, and really deepen, I guess, your understanding of your college classes. I think that was something helpful where I was able to take that away from Baylor.
Yes, learning how to talk to adults. That you hit the nail on the head on that. I think that is like a soft skill that you don't appreciate till you get, out of college, honestly. So, and it's something that, you learn by doing, so.
Yeah, I think I'd echo all of that. I think not just in college, but kind of continuing through professionally. I think Colt mentioned it with the leadership opportunities. So much of it is baked into what you do here. And so it's just part of the ethos of being a student here. And then when you get out on the other side and you're interacting with more and more people who didn't necessarily have that as their foundation, I think, that you really see that. I would say the other thing that isn't necessarily so much a skill, but just something I'll mention is just the connection of community and how far that extends. So there's certainly the group, the cohort that you come in with, and the people who are kind of most immediately adjacent to your experience, and your roommate and your dorm mates and all of those different things. But I think it's that the connection and the community that the school offers extends far beyond that. So I saw Scott Wilson walk in, for instance, who's former headmaster at Baylor. He wasn't my head of school, but I feel like he was my head of school because when I started to work in independent schools and we would see each other at different events, I feel like he cared about me just as much as an alum of the school as if I had been a student. And I'm just telling you, you don't get that. You don't get that everywhere. Garrison Connor, who's the head of the upper school, he and I were 2 years apart at Baylor. We didn't really interact a whole lot. We didn't know each other super well, but have had an opportunity professionally to connect with each other, and so have this opportunity to build a relationship. And the last one I'll say, I've mentioned this to a couple other people. My senior English teacher was a gentleman named David Padilla, who taught here for a long time, and he is now a head of school at a school in Greenville, South Carolina. And he and I go to a professional development conference. And so if you had told me when I was 18 that the person who I admired and who really pushed me in my writing, and actually my writing is one of the things that I get complimented on as a head of school, if you would have told me at 18 that I'd have an opportunity to have a peer in that teacher and that we would be able to support each other in that way professionally, I think those are some of the pieces that are really hard to measure, but are invaluable in feeling like you have this group behind you that's rooting you on far beyond the time you walk across the stage.
I think we have time for one or two more. Yes?
How hard is it for freshmen to transition into these extraordinary leadership roles?
So getting to Baylor, my first week, it really was one of the smoothest transitions I've had. So I've switched schools in middle school, and that was not nearly as smooth as it was to here. And so when I arrived in the dorm, I started talking to people, and it was amazing. Like, I just started learning all these things from all these different people, and I immediately started to have great friends that I could trust on. So the transition was extremely smooth for me. I mean, obviously, still meeting new people, so it's not going to be perfect, but I had a great time meeting new people and getting to expand on like who I wanted to be.
I can, excuse me, sorry. I can also echo that, as coming from private schools my whole life and an only child. Coming here in my freshman, an only child. Coming here my freshman year was extremely smooth. When you first get on campus as a boarder, Baylor makes an intentional effort to connect you with your community. your boarding community first. So you get really close with your dorm parents. You meet all the different from 9th grade to 10th grade. Luckily, Baylor doesn't just exclude you to one grade. You get to meet everyone at Baylor. And once you start coming to classes, you get included into the day student community. So it's not just separate, it's all one Baylor community. So I echo what he says. It's very smooth.
I'll touch on the more leadership aspect of the transition to Baylor. So I also came from a private school, and coming to Baylor, I was really interested in being super involved in a lot of things. And within my first week here and meeting everybody in the dorm, I knew exactly what I wanted to do, and that was to be a prefect. So a prefect is kind of like an RA in college, and so we're like the dorm supervisors, but on the student level. And so I was able to do that towards the end of my freshman year and my sophomore year, and now my junior year. And that has been a great opportunity to lead on the more boarding aspect. And also another leadership role that I was able to take on my freshman year was being a Baylor church leader. So I'm really involved in my faith, and coming here, our Reverend Gallimore, was really inclusive, and he was like, I can see that you're super confident in your faith, and I want you as a Baylor church leader. So I was able to take on those leadership roles about stuff that I was passionate about.
I think we have time for one more. Yes, please.
Thank you for your time today. I'm wondering about something that's been challenging at Baylor, or having to do with Baylor, or maybe something that you wish you could change about Baylor.
I honestly love this question because it immediately comes to my mind. Baylor has so many opportunities that you can get swept up really in wanting to do everything. So my hardest experience at Baylor so far has been learning to balance. And my dorm parents and my advisors have really helped me with that because, like I said, I love trying new things. It is one of my favorite things on planet Earth. So I tried to do everything my freshman year. As you can imagine how that went. So this sophomore year, I really prioritized balancing my schedule, learning that it's okay to say no to some things, but it's also okay to say yes, and learning how to really just balance. And I think I've gotten pretty good at that with the help of my Baylor community.
So it's really just balancing that work and res life balance. So where you got to do your work, but you also have people in the dorm that you love, that are your friends, that you have to like sort of distance yourself from during that time to make sure you get your stuff done. And I know I had a little bit of trouble with that. Yeah. But yeah, the more time you spend, the more time you mature and realize that there's a time for work and there's a time for play. And yeah.
Excellent.
How do you learn that? When did it click for you?
Well, yeah. No comment on that.
A series of trial and errors at fair, Smith. Anyone else have anything to add to that one?
I'll just say one
Well,
thing.
go for it,
Yeah.
please. Absolutely.
I'll just speak briefly. I think I mentioned this to a couple people, and I think it's worth sort of mentioning. I think one of the unique things about Baylor is having the day boarding population split the way that it is. I know for a lot of people in conversation, sometimes there's this hesitancy because the boarding population is not the majority. And I think it's okay to acknowledge that. I was telling several people last night, I think that one of the great benefits is that you get the small, intimate boarding community where you know each other, you know your dorm parents. If you don't know everyone, you recognize everyone, but you have access to what a campus with over 1,000 kids can offer you, which a small boarding school really can't. And so in a lot of ways, it's the best of both worlds. But I do think coming in as a freshman, you have a group of people who've been at Baylor for 3 years. They were here for 6th, 7th, and 8th grade. And so it feels very much like home to them. And you come as a boarding student and it very quickly feels like home to you. I don't necessarily think that's something I would change, but what I would present to you as a student coming in as a challenge, which is that your ability to make friends across different groups, not only across grades and across athletic groups, but particularly with the day and boarding, is your willingness to put yourself out there. So one of the very best things I did was I spent my time in the morning in the student center because that's where day students were coming in the morning. And so I will just say, I think that as you face some of those challenges and being in a larger group setting, Baylor does give you that confidence, but it's also taking the ownership to put yourself in situations where you have an opportunity to meet people you wouldn't otherwise meet. So in the end, I wouldn't change the small boarding community in this larger group setting, but I do think it presents its own opportunity for you to navigate as a student.
We do have time for just a couple of additional questions if anyone has any that are pressing. Yes, please. Yep.
This is for you, being one of the honors students, is there a set level of criteria or expectation that they're expected to make sure we're grades or GPA or leadership or community service that they're expected to maintain in the program?
So we do have what I suppose you could define as criteria. Obviously, we expect them to take advantage of the academic supports that they have available to them to help maintain scholarly grade point averages. But we really focus on the development of the well-rounded child. We want to see them embrace their passions, involve themselves in those things. They don't have to do all the things and be all the things to all the people in that regard. But we really try to focus on balance, maintaining that, helping them discover what their passions are through the various opportunities available to them on campus, and helping them leverage those and maximize those beyond Baylor. So in regard to that, and that's a community effort. I wouldn't even use that's a community effort. Their teachers are involved, their advisors are involved, residence life is incredibly involved. You have so many people who are there to see your child succeed and thrive. And I'm going to speak from the perspective of a parent for just a moment on this. You can't put a value on that. So I hope that answers your question, but that's how we approach it, particularly with the honors program. And there was another question as well.
I have a question for the panel. Do you guys consider yourselves overachievers? And if you're not overachievers, did they ever push you to something? Push you to be overachievers?
Smith has got this.
Well, I feel like everyone here is absolutely amazing. Like, I feel like everyone here is an overachiever. So it just, if it's sports, academics, you may not have found what you love, but you will find something that you love and that you will be extraordinary at. And I don't know if I found that yet, but I know that I'm getting better at sports, academics, and I'm progressing as a person in society while I'm here.
Go ahead and pass it on down.
To answer kind of that side, I consider myself very much an academic overachiever. So when I came to Baylor, like I said, I wanted to do everything. And in that sense, I had friends on the opposite side who were less of that kind of academic overachiever. So I feel like Baylor very much balances both sides of the scale. For me, like I said, I learned how to balance and learn how to say it's okay to say no to certain things, and to learn to be patient, especially my academics wanted to take all the hard classes. And the challenging classes, I had to learn how to just say, I can wait for this next year, or I can substitute this with this. But on the flip side, I can speak to some of my friends or even my former roommate. She was on the opposite side of not being so much as an academic overachiever. So they pushed her, especially in the learning center and in the classes she takes. And our advisors that were assigned at the beginning of the year also helped to get sort of guidance for her, to help her. It's okay to want to push yourself more, especially academically, or she was very much into the arts. So theater-wise or sports-wise, just all of it, Baylor really tries to push you where you need to be pushed, and also learn to scale back where you need to scale back.
Yeah, so like if you're not trying to do like what you want to do and just trying to be impressive, you're not really gonna have a fun time here. It's gonna be really stressful, just really, really hard on you. And definitely recommend like, I mean, you have 4 years here, right? Like, definitely try new things, try to push yourself, but like, just don't explode. Yeah, don't. Just kind of.
Don't implode.
So I do also consider myself an overachiever, but I think at Baylor and especially in the Harris Stanford Honors Program, everyone's an overachiever in their own kind of way. So whether that's being an overachiever in the sports you're in, or an academic overachiever, or you're involved in theater or music or anything like that, I think that everyone's kind of an overachiever in their own passion. And I think Baylor does a great job at encouraging you in that passion, and also, as Julissa was saying, they support you in the areas that you're not so passionate about as well, so that we're all kind of all around supporting ourselves.
I will just say I was academically very driven, but I came into Baylor incredibly risk adverse. I was someone who liked to only be in the space in which I had proven to be really, really successful. I didn't see myself as an athlete. And so what I appreciate is that I think there's a level of being known here that is, particularly as a boarding student, I think, as a parent, you often sort of sense, well, I didn't think they were going to go until they were 18. Who's going to be there for, when the things aren't going super well. I came in, I was very homesick, and I had an advisor and her husband. They're still here, the Partricks. And they were like, we've got to get her busy. And I was very comfortable in an academic world, so the classes were okay for me. But I, again, was not a risk taker. And I became a football manager, which no one would have guessed. And it was life-changing. And I got to know coaches at Baylor, and I got to be a part of a team. I was telling someone last night, and I made my husband hang it up in our office, I have 4 varsity letters in football. And so I think there's also that. So, I think you have people who come in and they want to do it all, and they're going to put themselves out there. I probably wasn't one of those. And I don't know if there are any of you in the room, or if there are parents who might think that about your own child, that they sort of thrive in the areas where they've had a lot of success, but maybe aren't as willing to take those risks. And I think that's particularly from a residential standpoint, and the relationship with your dorm parent and your advisors, is that you've got someone in your corner who's like, I know you don't think you can do this, but you too can learn what the line of scrimmage is. And that's pretty hard to beat.